Cheers. Happy Cookie Week. Hey, it's Eric Kim. I'm a food columnist for the New York Times, and you know what week it is? It's Cookie Week. This is our, oh my God, is this our 6th Cookie Week? Today we're gonna make a mint chocolate chip cookie bar. It's supposed to taste and feel like you're eating a mint chip ice cream cone. It's a very particular look, it's a very particular color. It's a very tender cookie. Because we're working with peppermint extract, it's really fun that this cookie also has a temperature element. When you take a bite of this cookie, your mouth will feel cold. I think for me, every time I develop a cookie, it gets easier and easier. It's one of those markers of time that helps me to feel my growth. This year's cookie, it's the fastest I've developed a cookie, which is very exciting. I did it in like a week. I think I've become a little more refined and less juvenile. And now I'm a serious man. I'm really proud of this. It's very sophisticated. The first step, grease your baking pan. And I'm using a 9x9 square baking pan. It's okay if your baking pan has rounded corners, because later we're gonna actually slice off a 1/2 inch from the edges to make like really perfect, clean lines. This recipe starts, as many of my cookies do, with a stick of butter, which means that when you take the butter out of the butter wrapper, it's gonna be sticky. And this is what I like to use to grease my pan. It's a butter-based cookie, so it's gonna be pretty like non-stick by itself. And we have the parchment on top of it. This is all just insurance. The reason for this parchment is it's gonna become really easy to lift out the cookie when we're done baking it. Another thing that I always try to do is make a cookie that you can just start with a bowl and a spoon. But I really like to show this step by hand so that people understand what texture you're looking for. When you do it by hand, you really have control. And this is the step where you want to get things really incorporated. I've noticed over the years that when you add everything at once, it's fine, but the final emulsion is a little less smooth than if you just like take time and do each step properly, which is cream the butter and sugar together first. The word cream is very confusing, so I really think of it as more like using your spoon to rub the sugar into the wet butter. See, it's like coming together now, right? Like magic. If I were at my mom's house and I hear her like coming down the stairs, I'd be like, but that's my charm, I think. What's cool about this cookie is if you only use egg white, you get this like lovely crisp edge, chewy center. It's just a cooler texture. I'm gonna use a teaspoon of peppermint extract. This is really the magic ingredient. You need a little vanilla extract. I was trying to do this cookie with just peppermint extract, but it didn't taste like ice cream. Oh, and some salt. This is the step where you kind of disperse the fat and liquid so that they kind of become one, like magic. I'm really in my like witchy phase these days. I really feel like I have psychic powers. What's really interesting about this cookie is there's no leavener other than that one egg white. Now we're gonna add flour. So the one thing that will ruin your cookie is adding too much flour. This recipe calls for a cup of flour. That for me has always been about 130 grams. Everyone's cup of flour is a little different. The 130 grams is the non-negotiable part. So if your 1 cup is like 140 or 150, then that's too much flour. And if you don't have a scale, then fluff up the flour in the bag with a whisk, and then take the spoon and level it out. Yeah. Flour tutorial. I'm just like trying to like fluff it up, aerate it. Because when your flour arrives, or even as it sits on the counter, it's gonna be pretty compact. Let's see how close I got. Moment of truth. 132, not bad. Not bad, right? Okay, the last step is really chill. You're just incorporating the flour into this. This is where I like to switch back to a spoon. This is the one part you don't want to overmix because you don't want to create too much gluten. You want a nice, light, lovely, effortless texture. Stir it just until it comes together. You can just plop all of it in at once, but It's a very thick dough, so it's actually a little easier to dollop it in like quadrants. You're just sort of getting it started, you know? This is the step where you're just trying to make it as flat as possible. I like to use an offset spatula, like a mini one. What makes it easier is if you just use like really confident motions, like short swooshes like that. This is where the music comes in, right? So you're gonna bake this in a lower oven than usual, 325 degrees, because I kinda wanna keep it pretty blonde. And you're gonna bake this for about 25 to 30 minutes. Rotate it halfway through. I like this recipe a lot because there's no tempering of the chocolate, there's no like science involved, you're just melting the white chocolate. I've made this very successfully with fancy white chocolate, fancy bar white chocolate, less fancy white chocolate chips, which have like stabilizers and stuff. It all works. I realize I don't really know how this works. Every 15 seconds I'm gonna just check it, because you don't wanna scorch your white chocolate. Ooh, okay, we're good. It's perfect actually. You still have a little bit of solids, but I really trust that the heat of this is gonna keep melting it. Let's say your chocolate didn't melt this gorgeously, and even if it did, I like adding a little olive oil. The olive oil adds a little peppery bitterness that really offsets the sweetness. Olive oil is so lovely in desserts. Okay, and a little peppermint extract. Only a half teaspoon, you don't want too much, so we're not trying to add too much liquid into this. This is the part where you dye this white chocolate topping. The way to dye it, just the right green, this color, is 2 drops of blue to 1 yellow. Green is cool, but when it's slightly blue, it's better. We're just gonna let this cool completely. You know, what you're really looking for is golden brown edges and for the center to be lightly golden. So now I'm going to try to apply as smooth of a white chocolate layer as possible. While the chocolate is still liquid, I'm going to chop up this block. This is the chip part now of the mint chip. And I like to use a dark chocolate. It's nice to have like a very bittersweet chocolate to offset the sweetness of the cookie base and the white chocolate. I like to stack the chocolate like this, so I have to chop less. There's no science to this, other than I really like to create like long, thin shavings. I've tried all different ways. You know, like using the large holes on a box grater also works, but I think this looks prettier. And I love having some bigger chunks because this is mint chip we're talking about. So we want some chips. So I know that my hands might melt this. So sometimes what I do is I just like, I might just go for it. What I'm gonna do now is refrigerate this until the white chocolate is completely hardened. And do you see how, even though I took all that time to really smooth out the white chocolate layer, in the end it kind of doesn't matter because like the chocolate covers up any of the grooves. So we're gonna refrigerate this. These are the finishing touches. You're just gonna pull it out. How satisfying, right? So cute. It's a really cool cookie. It's almost like pie crust, but it's not as short, but it's not quite a blondie either. It's like, it's its own third thing. To finish this, we are going to cut off the naked edges. These are like a delicious snack. They're like little cookie breadsticks. Who wants this one? Don't overthink it, but I just start with the corners. I like to make dramatic triangles. We did it. It's cold in temperature, but then the mint instantly, there's kind of like this like cooling effect, which is really lovely. Oh, I've actually frozen these before too. So like I would put these in that airtight container and you can keep it in the freezer and just bring it to temperature when you want to eat it. Cookie Week, year 6. Pretty happy with it.
Cookie
thanks.
Week lineup.
What a cute box. Love this.
Wow.
I haven't seen these up close actually. Oh my God. If you want this recipe and many more, you can go to nytcooking.com. It makes me happy to see so many people taking time out of their day to make cookies. This is so creative. Love that. Cookie Week. Yeah.